Hi, I'm Pam Mikowski. You're probably wondering, how is child support calculated? Well, I can talk about that under Ohio law. So here's a brief disclaimer. I'm an Ohio attorney. I'm providing you with legal information pertinent to Ohio law. I'm not giving you legal advice. You need to take the information that I'm providing you, along with the other facts of your case, to an attorney and have that attorney provide you with the appropriate legal advice. Okay, child support. Let's talk. In Ohio, child support is basically calculated by plugging in numbers into a worksheet and then doing a calculation that determines what that child support amount is going to be. Sounds simple, but actually it can be somewhat complicated. For starters, ideally you need the last 3 years' tax returns. You need that because the court will look at the last 3 years' income, including bonuses, and average them out for the purpose of child support calculation. However, because employment histories vary, it may be more important to look at the current income. There's also situations where the current income may not be the appropriate number because the person is voluntarily underemployed or has voluntarily quit their job. If that's the case, then the court can impute that income. So you need to be able to show what the income should have been if you're the person trying to argue that income needs to be imputed. Also, if one party or the other has no income, you can ask the court to impute minimum wage. If you have a case that presents these kinds of issues, I highly recommend that you consult with an attorney regarding how to calculate what the actual income amount is. In addition, under income, you would include other sources of income, such as workers' comp or spousal support. Those numbers all fit very neatly into the worksheet, get added up, and then income is produced, the number, what your total income is. Once that income number is produced, then other factors are called into play. One is the cost of health insurance. This issue arises over and over, and it's not as difficult as it sounds, but you need to know what is the cost of health insurance to include the children. In other words, you may be paying $400 a month for a family plan. That is not the cost of the health insurance to include the children. The cost of the health insurance to include the children is the family plan minus what you would pay if you only paid insurance for a single person. You may have to contact your HR department at work or your insurance agent to find out that difference. But that difference is the amount that goes into the calculation. In addition, if your children are in daycare, the daycare costs need to be calculated. We also need to know, are there other children outside of this relationship for whom one or the other parties is paying support? And we need to know, what is the local income tax rate? It's usually 2% in Ohio, but it can vary. Columbus, for example, just raised theirs, so it's slightly more. You need to know that information because when we're doing the income amounts, we're going on gross income, not net income. You can also deduct certain necessary expenses from your income if you're required to pay them under the guidelines worksheet. Finally, then, you will get a number that represents what child support should be. However, a lot of times people look at that number and say, that number is not realistic because my child's in private school, or my child has special needs, or whatever. There are a variety of reasons. In that case, you can do what's called a deviation. A deviation has to be done for a reason, not just because the people want to do it. But it's very easy to state the reason, because usually the reason is the child has increased expenses, or the party who's supposed to pay support has additional expenses or has been willing to pay for certain items that need to be considered as part of support. So if you do a deviation, you're going to have a separate finding of fact and conclusion of law that supports that deviation. Sounds complicated. Well, that's why at this point, if you're considering doing a deviation, or if you're having issues with imputed income, or if you're having issues with even calculating the basic support, I highly recommend that you consult with an attorney on these issues. You can make some mistakes that could cost you money, and while child support is subject to modification in the future, it's only subject to modification if there's a change in circumstances. So if you make a mistake now and the circumstances don't change, you might be stuck with that mistake for a while. So that's basically how you go about calculating child support. Thanks for listening.